Good evening and welcome to the January 7th meeting of the Historic District Commission. Getting some feedback from something. Hello, we don't have very many people in the audience tonight, but hopefully I will go ahead and introduce the commission and get on with our meeting. My far right is Larry Booz, who is our, it's been a while.
I'm going to start doing this.
Who's our,
it's been 30 days.
yes. Who's our
Good evening,
alternate.
everybody. How are you?
And we have Susan Strauss, who is our other alternate.
Good evening.
Dan Brown will hopefully join us at some point. I've got Martin Ryan,
Good evening.
Vice Chair Margaret Doring.
Hello.
And the Chair Reagan Rudig. Got Isaac Gilbo from the Planning Department.
Good evening.
We have a vacant seat at the moment for our City Council representative, but hopefully next month we will have one. And David Adams.
Good evening.
And we've got Joy Kurth.
Good evening.
So, let's see, the board's action in these matters has been deemed to be quasi-judicial in nature. If any person believes any member of the board has a conflict of interest, that issue should be raised at this point or it will be deemed waived. That's somebody raising their hand for that. I would like to move up the election of officers to the beginning of the agenda, if that is all right with everyone. We had kind of moved it to the end last year with John departing, so let's go ahead and move that up to the beginning. That's okay. I don't know if I need a motion to move.
Well, I'll make a motion to do that.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All right, so do we have anyone who would like to nominate anyone for the positions?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to nominate Reagan Rudig and Margot Doring as Chair and Vice Chair respectively.
Thank you.
Second.
All right. Is there, I don't really know the proper procedure for this. Are there any other nominations? All right, well then I guess we,
Pass the gavel for yours.
okay, so, all right, for,
So,
Nomination
all in
of chair.
favor of Reagan Rudig as chairperson?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So be it.
thank you. And all those in favor of Margot Doring as vice chair?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate the honor of being able to lead this commission. And I really appreciate having Margot be your vice chair to pick up the slack and help out with all of the background work that we do.
And I'm very happy that you're sitting there, and thank you very much, everybody, for supporting us throughout the year.
All right. This meeting is fairly short because we have a lot of postponements. So let me go through and list out the requests to postpone before we get into the approval of minutes or administrative approvals. The first one is public hearing A, which is a public hearing requested by Capital Security Financial Services, owner for property located at 40 Market Street. This is the replacement of the front entry doors, and suppose that they are still working on that. And then public hearing B, requested by Peter and Morgan Caraviello, owners for property located at 366 Islington Street. Another front door replacement that hopefully they are working on. And then work session old business A, work session requested by Zucchini Crayon Trust, owner for property located at 77 State Street. And a request to postpone for the work session requested by Christopher W. Avery Revocable Trust, owner for property located at 30 Walden Street. And I assume those two are still just working on things behind the scenes.
30 Walden is. Unfortunately, 77 State Street did not get a favorable vote back from their HOA, so
Okay.
next month they will be withdrawing.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and if I could get a motion to postpone all of these until the February meeting.
So moved?
And seconded?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you. All right, now I move to the approval of the minutes from the December 3rd meeting. Does anyone have any changes or edits?
Yeah, there was one item in the discussion of the redistricting request by the planning board. The numbers, 43 and 53, were switched, and
Okay.
Isaac is going to straighten that out so that we're referring to the proper properties.
Okay, great, thank you.
Easy fix for those.
All right, anything else? Great, could I get a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Thank you. Okay. Now on to administrative approvals, where we have a relatively short list. So I'll let Isaac take it away.
Okay. So our first administrative approval item is 232 Court Street, Unit Number 2. I do have a quick clarification, as I did make a slight mistake in my description. So at last month's meeting, we had actually stipulated not to have a black charger and black post, but instead to have a white charger and a white post. The homeowners have actually purchased the black charger ahead of time, so they'd already had that. Their wish is to be able to install the black charger with the black post. So that would be their request, is to just take that stipulation away.
Any issues with that?
Presumptuous,
Well, I have a
but-
question, about being newer on the board. This is a repeating issue that we're seeing where we get presented with a request, but then we find out purchases have already been made. What is the standard?
Well, there's no real standard protocol for that. It is, we just kind of have to take it project by project. And, you know, in this case, I think it's a minor accessory
Aesthetic.
piece of equipment that's definitely harder, as you'll see when we get to larger aspects of the building that have already been purchased or installed or something like that, that is harder to tackle, but
Okay.
we just kind of have to deal with each one and hope that it's understood by most applicants that they have to have approval before actually doing things.
I know for this homeowner, you know, they were a little surprised. They didn't tell me initially that they had purchased the black one ahead of time, so they were a little surprised to have the white stipulation there. So, yeah, so I think this is probably going to be a learning lesson for them, and hopefully for anyone else who's watching. So,
Okay.
any further questions on that particular item? All right.
Well, so my question is like, could we stipulate that they paint the posts white, like, in the stipulation, or do we not? Are we just gonna, I think that could be a recommendation, unless anyone else does it. important.
From my personal aesthetic, because this is really more of an aesthetic thing versus a structural thing,
Yeah.
if you have a white building with a black roof, I'd rather have an all-black accessory and not have a white post with a black thing that's just like sitting there,
Sure.
floating among the white. So,
Okay.
So item number 2 is 6 Dearborn Street. The applicant here is seeking approval to replace this existing rear side entry. They are keeping the existing roof and replacing the posts, the railings, and the decking boards and stairs. They are keeping it dimensionally the same as you see here, with a lot of the same detailing. The only additional items that they would be adding are skirting at the bottom and then some additional trim work on the new posts. And I will zoom in a little bit more so we can see that detail. And so this would be the new proposed rear side entry. Again, in the same location, dimensionally the same, they're just adding a few extra details.
All right. I think
Any
it's
issues or-
Seems like an upgrade to me.
it'll be an improvement.
Okay. We'll move right along to item number 3, which is 139 South Street, Unit A. This project has come before us for a few admin approvals over the last couple of months. This one is probably for the least request, which is to just relocate one window, and that would be from the side elevation to the rear. And so there's the existing window to be relocated to the rear on the side. And that would be the proposed location on the rear. And it would be the same Marvin window that we've approved. Okay. 39 Holmes Court, item number 4. The applicant here is seeking approval to change a hardy material to an acre material. From what I understand, it's a somewhat similar, sort of an engineered material. And so they are hoping to change the paneling and trim out for that. They've also asked to omit some previously approved trim and molding details. And then there's a slight change in the light sizing of the 3rd floor window due to being changed from a double hung to a casement window, and that was actually due to egress from the inspections department. And so they show this is the paneling detail that was changed for the material. And then, of course, this was the window that was slightly changed. Any further questions on this particular application? Okay. Then the last administrative approval item we will have is 163 Islington Street. This is the Cafe Killam business. And they're seeking approval to install one window where it's believed that a window existed at a prior time. And it would match the existing windows that are on the current right-hand side of the building. The proposed window would be on the left-hand side of the building. And let me just zoom in so you can see the placement for that. And they would be using a very similar window with the same trim detailing to match.
So that would be a casement window,
Yes.
or not, it says casement and awning.
It's turned.
Okay.
Should be an awning.
Okay, well, with that being said, if there's no further questions, I'll just quickly just run through our list one last time. Item number 1, 232 Court Street, unit number 2. As I clarified, the changing of colors, we will go ahead and allow them to move forward with their purchased unit. Item number 2, 6 Dearborn Street, no stipulations there. Item number 3, 139 South Street, Unit A, no stipulations. Item 4, 39 Holmes Court, no stipulations. Item 5, 163 Islington Street, no stipulations.
Pretty simple. Some of the easiest.
For a change.
Yeah, I know. One of the easiest slate of administrative approvals that we've had.
Let's just be sure that it's understood that the post is going to be black as well. Just
Sure.
Yes.
we don't have a-
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
don't come back again.
Okay, great. Can I get a motion to?
Motion
approve
to
all those?
approve as provided with no stipulations.
Okay.
Seconded?
Just to clarify,
Yeah.
both of our alternates are voting today.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that. I should have said it earlier because we still don't have Dr. Brown and we have no council rep.
Right.
So you are both filling in for this tonight. All right. All in, did I get a, you moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Thank you. All right. So we now only have 2 applications before us tonight, both by our same applicant. Makes it a pretty simple agenda, but these are less than simple projects. So let's get started. Our first one will be public hearing requested by Ralph 1912 LLC, owner for property located at 175 Fleet Street, wherein permission is requested to allow new construction to an existing structure, construct a one-story rear addition, and install new fencing with landscaping and hardscaping, and the new construction of 2 food kiosks on site as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 117 as Lot 8 and lies within the Character District 5, Downtown Overlay, and Historic Districts. Hello.
Good evening. Happy New Year. Tracy Kozak with Arcove Architects here on behalf of the applicant, Ralph. And also Mark McNabb from McNabb Properties is here. A quick note, the other application we have tonight following this is 134 Pleasant. One of the requests at the last meeting was to bring that project as a 3D model with the Virtual City 3D model. While we were at it, we put Gillies in there too.
Okay.
So we have both. It takes about 5 or 10 minutes to load up, and I have to connect, I guess, via Zoom to get it to show on the screen. So while
I actually, Tracy, I was able to, I think, get those going before the meeting started. So I think I've got both of those up, or at least I have Gillies up to start.
Yeah.
So if it's easier to use this computer when we get to that point, you're more than welcome, or we can try to connect to yours.
do you want to navigate, like zoom around, or do you want me to do that?
I can certainly try. As I said, I'm not as familiar with this, but yeah, why don't we, when we get to that point, we'll try it on this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
It works like Minecraft, if you've ever done that. You know. All right. Well, great. Then that makes it easy. So thanks for having us back. I did bring some samples of the materials. We can look at those. And but first, I'd like to go through the changes that we made since last time.
Sure.
We did here. There was a fairly good consensus to move kiosk 1. So we did. We moved. That's the one by Fleet Street to the lower left. We moved it all the way down to the south part of the property in that corner to open up the view more of the existing Gillies from Fleet Street. That's it with the landscaping and the roof plan. The other couple of changes were siding and colors. We changed on the 2 kiosks, we changed from metal to composite. So the flat panels would be a fiber cement, like a Hardy panel. And then the trim is a wood composite. We are using the same paint colors as the existing Gillies with the crimson and the white. The roof is a copper-colored metal. It's not actual copper, but it's an anodized aluminum to look like the color of copper, so it won't patina. It'll always be that kind of slightly aged brown copper phase. If we could stay on that just for one moment, yep. I want to point out, so we started laying out the kitchen equipment inside to make sure they're really going to work. And so you see we have 6 square windows facing the street. Kiosk 2 is identical, it's just kind of mirror image. The 2 windows to the left and the 2 windows to the right would be spandrel glass because there's actually cooking stoves and refrigerators behind there. The 2 in the middle are clear glass that you can see straight through. And that is the same as before with the bathroom addition to the right. That is behind the existing Gillies building. No changes to that. This is the view from the back. So kiosk 2 is to the left and the bathroom addition you see on the right. And this is the north view as seen from that little kind of alleyway space between the Hanover parking garage and Gillies. This will be fenced off on either side. No changes from before, but just a reminder, this is the trash corral. So there will be a 6-foot cedar fence at either side with a keypad, so not everybody can just hang out back there, but it is meant to be a shared trash collection area for the whole area. And the elevations of each individual kiosk, on kiosk 1, because we moved it closer to Newbury Way, we flipped the transaction window and the service door for better pedestrian flow. And the aerial view. And street view renderings. And context.
Yeah, I have a question.
Do you mind if we butt in a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah.
What happened to your gas entrance?
Where's the gas entrance?
Yeah, it was on that side where you called a trash corral, and I didn't see it.
So the existing gas meters are going to be relocated. We're taking them away from where they are now, and we're putting them on the back of the new bathroom addition. And if you go to one more, yep, that one. On the right-hand side,
Yep.
you see the dash. There's going to be 3 meters there. Those will face the Hanover
Ah.
garage.
I see it, thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question. Where's the venting for the kitchens?
We will come back when we locate the vent hood for the stove, but there will be some sort of vent coming on the roof for the cooking equipment. We don't know where that is yet.
Given what you said about the glass, it's likely with kiosk 1 to be on the street side versus the courtyard
Yes,
side?
so, exactly. So facing inward to the food court, those are the larger windows with the flipped up roof. Those are all clear glass. There's no spandrel facing the food court. And likewise on kiosk 2, which is partly tucked behind a little retaining wall. You see that on the lower right of that drawing. The same where the middle windows are clear. I think that drawing shows the far right window is clear, but the intent is the 2 on each side are spandrel, the 2 in the middle are clear.
So you're saying on kiosk 1, it is likely that the venting will be on the street side? Or
Oh,
you
on
really-
which side of the roof?
My impression was that you think the equipment is going to be on the street side, which led me to.
Stove. Currently is located, we have the cooking range facing the food court on kiosk 1, and it's facing Newbury Way on kiosk 2. Those could potentially flip. This is kind of a test fit for the equipment. You're probably not wanting to see any chimney stacks facing the street, right?
Not necessarily, but having it face the street makes the choice of what it looks like a little
A
more
lot more important. Yep.
urgent in terms of approving it.
As it's
Because
current-
once you've placed the
yeah.
equipment, you've sort of placed the equipment.
As currently laid out, and you can see on the second page of this application, you can see the floor plans with the kitchen equipment. The stove, which would have the hood exhaust above it, faces the inner courtyard, not the street.
Right, very good questions. Should we keep going? Are there other questions? I mean, I think that you've mostly covered it, other than just other views, perspectives. Mr. Ryan?
I don't have any questions, I have comments if you're ready.
Sure.
I'll just simply say that this is, I think you hit the sweet spot with this, and I was so worried about the character the last time you presented, and I think, you know, these 2 little structures seem like they're the offspring of the 1912 building. So I think this is an excellent solution, and I think you've maintained the character, and, you know, I think it's sometimes the simplest approach. You're kind of relating to what is there now. It's not as creative as the last presentation, but sometimes the simple is the right answer, and I think this is the right answer, and you know, I'm very happy with what you produced.
Anybody else? Yes, Mr.
I'm going
Booth?
to jump on board with Martin. I think last time we talked about how I guess building number one was very, very close to the original Gillies. And we had various ones of us made the comment that if you pull that back and bring it in line with Newberry, then everything lines up. And you guys have done a good job with that. And I like what you've done by pulling it back, and it actually gives you a bigger, dining court area for people. So I think that's great. I'm also going to jump on board with what Martin said. I think keeping the same color scheme. The orange and turquoise just really jumped out at me. And this is very harmonious, and I do agree sometimes simple is better. The only thing I'm scratching my head about at all is just, the porthole window versus something where you've got the semicircular arch and then the square bottom, but, that's not a deal breaker. That's just, I think you've done a great job is what I'm trying to say this time around. And it's a much more harmonious project.
Yes.
I agree with gentlemen to either side of me. I'm curious about the landscaping that you've provided images of, because that has changed.
I brought a sample of the granite. That will be the retaining walls and benches. This is the same as previously approved for the entirety of Newbury Way. Would you like me to pass it around?
Sure.
Thanks, Tracy.
Autumn pink.
Autumn pink. It's pink. There we go.
We have the planters in front along the sidewalk, as you can see, and the inner food court is a white concrete with a inlay of a red colored material as a ribbon pattern.
So are the choices of plant material now what is represented in these latest drawings, or still to be determined?
The actual plantings are listed by species on the landscape plan. These are generic low flowers and low shrubs. They're the correct height and color. But if you want more detail on the actual plant, we do have a landscape plan in here somewhere. Page 3. I did not include the entire planting legend, but I can if you'd like. They're basically low shrubs. There are no trees.
Are they year-round?
Year-round plantings, so
As in evergreen.
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 Well, I know there are some flowering elements, but there's also some evergreens mixed in as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
I'll just make a comment, my thoughts. I think it's a significant improvement. I think I overall like it. My 2 comments at this point are just that I think the roof is a little bit dramatic still to the other roof personally. And my question also is about that pattern on the ground. I think it's a little personally like artistic for the historic nature of this area, but otherwise I think like I love the colors matching. I think it fits more overall, but those are my 2 would be like to see differently personally, but I hear the other comments and I think it is an overall aesthetically complementary to what's existing there, so.
Great. Any other questions?
And it's not a question. I thank you for moving kiosk 1 to the right. Having seen how much you revealed of Old Gillies, the sign, and so on, I would give you a little leeway to move it back a teeny bit if you feel you're crowding the corner a little bit too much. It just seems like it's a little squished in that corner, and I think you've already, once you moved it to the right, you revealed the Gillies sign, which had been covered before and was the only thing that was bothering me. So if you feel that you pushed it a little bit further because you felt you needed to go all the way to the corner, I personally don't feel you have to.
Okay.
All right, if there are no other questions, we can open it up to the public. Anyone from the public wishing to speak?
Good evening, Elizabeth Bratter, 159 McDonough Street, property owner. I do like this one much better than the other one, and I understand what you're saying about the particular thing, but that pattern that's going to be in the sidewalk is the same one that's going to come down from the other door to the Hanover Street garage. That's all comes, and it kind of makes it all come together. I was involved in that other project that's on the corner. What's the name of that one? The one where the glass is on the corner. So 1 Congress Street has that pattern, and then it comes right down, and you can see it come down Newberry Way. So to me, it kind of makes the whole block come together, which I think is a nice idea. And I like the idea of the low bushes as opposed to trees, because you want to still be able to see Gillies, which is the landmark that's been here. So all in all, I do like this project. Thank you very much.
Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? I don't see anyone here. Is there anyone online? All right, well, then I suppose I will close the public hearing and wait for a motion on this, and then there can be discussion after the motion is made.
I'd like to move that we approve this as presented.
I'll second that.
I think that it goes out of its way to preserve the integrity of this part of the district, and I think that the historic significance of the site is not so much the site, but the building on this site has been improved and enhanced for the pleasure of the community. And I want to thank the applicants for doing this.
I second that. I feel that that it is a wonderful solution. It's still very creative, and I'm looking forward to seeing this this icon being preserved and this whole area being reinvigorated. So, well done.
Any other discussion? I'll just say that I agree with all the comments here. This has been toned down just enough to fit in well, but like Mr. Ryan said, it's still very creative. It is still clearly new buildings that are a take on the historic, and I think will certainly help clean up this little block and square much more than it is now, and will kind of be a part, like we were saying, the sort of squiggles on the sidewalk will really bring together this whole block
Squiggles.
in a cohesive way. There are kind of squiggles.
So Regan,
yes.
before we vote, one question. The generator boxes, which I believe are in the bottom right-hand corner of these, is that part of this application? Is that something we even have a say in, or are they already there and it's all part of what PSNH or Unitil is doing, and it's not part of this application?
That is part of this application, although it may change slightly because we don't know exactly the size of the generator yet. It is tied to the city's infrastructure that's going to happen on Fleet Street, and the transformer will be added to serve that whole area. So we do have the two, the dichroic glass partitions on either side. It's open to Newberry Way. It may shift a little left or right or get a slightly different size, but there may be two. I think we're showing two side by side. But that's the location we're looking at.
So is it really part of the city's responsibility to place it, and?
It's generally, from what I understand, usually between, the city and if it needs to go into private, property or what have you. It just sort of depends on what makes the most sense for the site. A lot of times, electric companies will have certain parameters that we'll have to follow and where they can be placed. A lot of times we can't do subterranean. That's why we see a lot that are, above ground.
I could answer that a little better.
Thank you, Mark.
In this case, these transformers are a combination between the City of Portsmouth, Eversource, and us. These transformers are vital for the work going on in Fleet Street. The City of Portsmouth wants to bury power down Fleet Street to those buildings. There's other buildings that are non-conforming on electrical. The one on the corner of Fleet and Congress, the 5-story metal building, has transformers a transformer that was built in the building and they can't even get it out.
Okay.
And Eversource needs to cure that problem. There's a lot of stuff going on, infrastructure, just like we have on water and sewer when the city redoes these streets.
Yep.
And it's next to impossible to find private land or land that doesn't take city sidewalks or streets. So we have volunteered private land to make all that work. But that is a vital component of Eversource, the city, and us. We don't need those transformers for just us.
Right.
By any means. But if we don't put them there, then the stuff in Fleet Street can't happen without some change somewhere.
Okay.
And they also really need to complete the circuit down Newberry Way to the transformers on the High Hanover Garage. All these residential projects now require complete circuits so that if power goes down on one side, they can grab it from the other. So these transformers do an awful lot to continue the grid and clean that whole area up. And they didn't know it's so technical and there's so much stuff going on in design in that. They just said, we don't know the size of those transformers yet, if there's two 750 kVAs or 500 and a 750, and they just know that they'll fit in that footprint and they'll be in that area. And they meet their code by having 10 feet of clearance in front, which is what they need to be able to de-energize them.
And so could I just clarify, there's sort of two light gray boxes, and
Yes.
then there are two dark gray boxes. Is that also part of the transformer? Because you said the dumpsters are in the corral on the other side.
The dumpsters are in the corral, and I don't know, Tracy, do you know what the dark green is? I don't.
Those are recycling bins.
Yeah.
Recycling bins.
Well, yeah, so those are for the customers who are having their lunch. They're not the dumpsters, they're like trash recycling.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Okay. They just look really huge.
I think they look out of scale, yeah.
Okay.
They wouldn't be that size,
Okay.
not for the local dining there.
Thank
That's
you.
all they're doing, though.
Sorry for the interruption of protocol.
That's okay. All right, great. So at least we've established that those will be TBD, a little bit in final design. Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? I think we're all good. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Thank you. You have your approval for that. And then the next one is public hearing, new business number 1. It is a work session public hearing requested by Double MC LLC owner for property located at 134 Pleasant Street, wherein permission is requested to allow new construction to an existing structure, construct additions and other exterior modifications, and the new construction of a multi-use building on the site as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 116 as Lot 30 and lies within the Character District 4 and the Historic Districts. So would you, because it's work session public hearing, would you like us to come down and have discussion, or?
Take
I'll
a
do it
look
from
at.
there. Oh, great. All right, so more samples. So let's move down to the table.
When do you want to look at the
Oh,
work session?
we forgot the 3D for Gillies, but we'll certainly look at it for this one. You let us know when the right time is to zoom through.
Yeah,
The link for 134 brings up Gillies as well. So
you have to close the Gillies one. You can't do 2 at a time. Yeah. Hello, happy New Year.
Okay, that is, that's loading now. Yep.
You guys got the beginning. I made 21 cookies this year.
Oh, boy.
Done this a few times.
Spend a lot of time in this room, don't you?
It hasn't changed in a long time.
All right. All right, do we want to do the 3D first?
No, it takes like 10 minutes to load. Once it's up, it's good, but, all right. So we'll go through, I'd like to go through the changes since last time, and then we can look at some materials. So it's two buildings, as you recall, a renovation of the existing and then the new building towards the front. I think we go through the package. I could talk about each one. That's just the existing conditions, as you recall. In plan, really no changes in plan. The roof. So we did add a shallow hipped roof to the penthouse on the existing building. That is copper, and it essentially matches the shallow copper roofs on the new building. In plan, that's all you'll notice that's different. The existing demo drawings are the same. Recladding the existing building entirely. And just a reminder for anyone watching from home or whatever, the existing building was built in the 50s and it was reclad in granite and brick in the 80s. So we are recladding it a second time using a white granite and a metal composite. Those are to show the project in context with the surrounding, and you'll see that better, even better in the city model. And the enlarged drawings. So the upper drawing on the left is the existing renovation. As I mentioned, we added the shallow hipped roof on the top. What we also did is we removed the Brise Soleil sunshades on that front entrance, so it's simpler. It's just glass and siding. We did a lot of detailing, and you'll notice when we get to the colored renderings, well, it'll probably be easier to explain in the colored renderings. Okay, well, that's.
Did you want to go back to some of the other
Yeah,
ones first?
let's go back to a couple of the elevations real quick, just
Yep.
to touch on one other thing. Okay, that one there. That top drawing to the right, you see the brick form with the pointy roof. This is subtle, but we lowered the pitch of that roof just a little bit so that it matched the hipped roofs facing the street. So it's a shallower pitch with the same height. Previously, we had the same pitch, but because it's a little wider, it made it taller. So that lowered the peak of that roof more than a foot or two. So that helps it step down a little bit more than previously as we transition to the lower existing building. The other main thing we did on the new building is to redesign the entrances, the main entrances. On the upper right, you recall we had one big, wide, shallow arch. We made it more of an arcade using an elliptical arch, reminiscent of some of the carriage house L's you see on the back of some of the manor houses around town. And we had previously a shallow shed roof across what was the large arch. We got rid of that and just did a simple straight parapet wall with some trim detailing. We changed the siding of the side wings on the new building, those white boxes that stick out. Those had been a flat panel with trim, and it was beginning to look a little bit Tudor-esque, I guess. So now we are using a board siding a horizontal board siding. It does have a nickel gap reveal between the boards, but they're not clapboards. And we have the same flat trim as before. And that's pretty much the big changes. And if we want to go through the rest of the drawings, we can describe some of the details. That's the view from Pleasant Street coming from Court Street. To the far right of that kind of white side addition, tucked around the back, that we did detail that a little bit. That is the residential entrance for that new building. We have 2 apartments upstairs, and that's how they'll get in. The other entrances are commercial entrances for the bank.
And is this, sorry, Isaac, if you can go back to that rendering. Yep. This, on the right, is that just the retaining wall?
That's an existing retaining wall. I think it's on the neighbor's property, actually.
Okay, just making sure that that's, I wasn't sure who owned that.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure who does own it.
It's not in great shape. I wouldn't be surprised if someone comes back at some point to ask to rebuild it. It's kind of leaning over.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's leaning over.
Delicate.
She's written a couple letters about it.
Okay, all right.
Different views. That's the views from the south. The south of the new building. We do have some details in those arches. It's a metal kind of lattice work, and we were inspired by the lattice work of the Widow's Walk on the Langdon House. It's not the same pattern, but it's trying to get that same lacy effect that they have on the portico and the Widow's Walk. We've taken it to be a truss support on the side arches, and we flipped it into a little bit of an awning, an eyebrow awning at the entrance which you walk through. So it signifies the entry, and we repeat that detail on the Pleasant Street arch. And the back of it doesn't have an arch because it's just the simple entrance, but in those 2 locations.
So I have a question here. Here you're showing the brick is more of a yellow brick, and in the drawings it was kind of a red brick?
It's apricot.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
It's a
So
glazed brick. It's a glazed brick, yep.
So it's neither red nor yellow.
Okay, and moving along, this is the renovation. So we have the white granite on the bottom. This is not the exact finish of the white granite. We are proposing a flat thermal finish, so a matte rough texture. This is a little more rough, and it will not include this one, but it's a Bethel white out of Vermont. When we get the flat stones and the correct finish, we can provide those as well.
Like what's on the side of the edge.
Yeah, it would be like that finish here. And above it is, well, I'll just show materials next. And above it is a metal composite panel. This is an alucobond and a zinc finish. That is the second story. And then you see there's details on tops of the windows. We have beams. The floors on this existing building are very low. They're like 9 feet 3. So we have, to avoid having little gun slot windows, we've added the wood header detail on tops of the windows, which would be a heat-treated wood. This is Thermarie. And you see that detail in a few places on the tops of the windows and at the top of the penthouse. The soffit would be an aluminum longboard to match the heat-treated wood. Oh, what else do I have? That's not the right profile. This is the profile. It's the wrong color. There's a granite base on both buildings, just your typical New England gray granite. And so this is for the existing building. It's a natural gray slate on the brick hipped roofs. So this would go with that. And
Where's that slide go?
copper, you've seen copper. It's a natural mill finish, we wouldn't get it pre-patinaed. And the little oculus dormers are natural zinc.
Where's the slate?
The slate goes on the new building on the hipped roofs. Yep. So we have that. And that. I think that's pretty much it.
Tracy, the gunmetal, the second item you pulled out over the, yes, where did that go?
This is the second floor cladding on the new building. It looks kind of white there. But we've,
So above the, where the Kennybunk name is that what you're referring to as the
so
second floor?
Oh, not on that building, that's the new building. So on the existing building, the old building looks new and the new building looks old, so
Yeah.
this gets a little confusing. Yeah, the second floor would be a gray.
So
Yes,
here,
yes,
right
exactly.
I can't see where he's pointing.
this
Yeah.
part,
Oh, yeah.
Margot.
Okay.
Looks very
It's
white.
I see.
It does look
looks-
almost white in these drawings.
H306.
Yeah, so to me, it looks like it's the white marble all the way up, but that's not, that's a trick of the
Yeah,
image.
it
Yeah.
kind of depends which way the sun's shining on these renderings, but that's probably a better rendering there where it shows where the gray is on the second floor.
Okay.
So you
Okay, yeah, I see, okay, I see it easier to see here.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are 2 roof decks on the roof, one for each apartment. They are contained within a fenced area with plantings.
Can you remind me how many apartments are gonna be in there?
We have 12 on the second floor and 2 on the roof in the existing building, and then the new building has 2, so that's a total of 16. There is underground parking beneath everything. We have 91 parking spaces on the site, so no variance is needed for that.
Is that existing under the existing?
No.
Oh, okay, you're right. Okay.
There is a big, huge existing basement under the existing. We will be utilizing that for parking with a new ramp coming around the back. And then we will excavate under the new building. It will be continuous underneath.
You may have said it. In fact, I think you did, but I didn't quite catch it though. Back to that slide H306, the wood material which is above the second floor windows. I'm just curious, why wood above and just not make a taller window? Was it the height of the ceiling or?
There are beams right behind it, so if we did glass, it would be spandrel.
Got you.
We wanted to soften it up a little bit and make it a little warmer. It's kind of a harsh, commercial building, and we want it to be amenable to residential use, so we thought it would make it feel a little warmer, friendlier.
I do have a question about that material. So the thermal treated wood, does that have a tendency at all to fade?
Well, the color goes all the way through. Does it get that silvery
Heather or-
patina?
yeah.
I haven't actually.
I would think it would show some.
My only
It's
concern
not
was
in
that
cedar.
just having it next to the
Yep.
wrapped aluminum piece that you're using for the sides.
Yeah,
That,
we could do the same, just pick one of these and do the same on both locations. Would make sense.
yeah, I was concerned about down the road, one of, the wood material would end up looking differently
Yeah.
from this one, which won't, because it's not natural.
Unless you did a clear finish,
But I
which would,
but I think it would go in the right direction. If it looked any type of little weathering. I don't think it would, I think it would be all the materials are gonna do something, and with sunlight. So, but it is a through and through material, so, I think it would actually be complementary even if it did show some type of weathering.
That's fine. I'm not concerned about the weathering, especially it's a natural material. It will weather, but it's just the butting up against something, against this one that is not going to weather.
Well, that's right, it won't.
So,
Right.
so it'll be, eventually it won't look like you're intending it to be the same.
you're totally right. I think, and the only place this happens is the underside of the soffit of that penthouse roof, which
Right.
is
Oh,
just a
okay.
little,
That's it.
Okay, then that's.
but even
minimal.
so, we could easily use that there.
Yeah, it being on a different plane, being on a soffit, it's
Okay.
gonna have a different light.
That's, then that's
Okay.
that's a non-issue. I thought they were gonna be sort of
No.
closer together. I thought it was gonna be under the soffit of the second floor, there, so that they would be close together. There.
Well, I will say this, I think last meeting I said something about the old building, which looks modern. I mean, I kind of likened it to like a Western airport terminal. But you've totally softened that up. I mean, the mild hip roof you have in the top, I think I said something about that last time, and I'm just giving you a compliment. I like what you did because it makes the two buildings kind of fit more together, and it makes the existing building blend, I think, not only with the new construction, but with everything else down, the whole way down to the middle school and everything. I think it helps everything blend just by that addition of that hip roof. So I like what you did on that.
It was actually your comment that we looked at the hip roof. We looked at the whole roof. You had shown the whole roof, and it quickly fell out of scale. It got way too high. But what did work well was just doing the hip on the smaller version.
I was playing around here on the sketch pad, and I kept saying I'm not an architect. And Martin said, but I am.
We really like it. I think it does make it look a little bit more residential as well.
Yeah.
And it does tie it into the other building, so, yeah, we're happy.
Yeah, you did a good job.
the
with that.
change.
Very good.
Yeah, I'll just add, I think, I actually love it now. I'm actually amazed, is like when I first looked at it, like how it went through all the phases, and the last time I was pretty concerned when I felt like it went backwards, but putting that hip roof on it, I think is the blending of the two buildings with the existing buildings, and I really love all the lattice features, taking inspiration. I think that, and then it blends with the modern building into the new building. I love the elements. I think you've really done a great job now.
And the entryway's changed also.
Yeah, and the entries, all of it. I really think, and my feedback had been, I wouldn't look at this building and think it's from Portsmouth. Now I look at it and feel like this has the Portsmouth elements, and you've blended the generational evolution of this property really nicely now. I think it's really well done.
It's a handsome streetscape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to show you the 3D model. Is it queued up, Isaac?
I was just going to suggest that we do
It
that.
looks like it is.
Margot, please feel free to
Isaac's
just
computer.
shout out if you have.
I did have one question, Tracy, in the renovated building, the big storefront windows, those are staying big plate glass windows. The usage of the building right now, or that floor, appears to be a gym, and I know that doesn't always stay. Sometimes plans change. So my question was, how do you plan to handle what a gym often looks like from the street with machines and people and sweating and all this stuff going on? Is that something that you would welcome, or is that something you're going to put frosting on the windows? Are you going to require the tenants to not put the you know, because so many times people put these gyms in and then they realize just how unappealing it looks like from the outside, and then they end up covering it over. So I didn't know if you had any thoughts about that, even if you're certain that you're going to be using it for that purpose.
Well, we're not certain, but I like to pick concepts downtown that I think the downtown needs. I like to embrace certain uses. This use, though, would have physical therapists and would have, in addition to a gym. So you would never have it be like a weight, Nautilus equipment look in the storefront.
Okay.
I don't find anything objectionable about that. It just wouldn't fit into my programming, because by the time you have an entry system and you greet and welcome and you have other functions going on, a physical therapist or, the weight stuff doesn't want to be in the front entry right in your face. It wants to be behind. You have to have a welcoming and an approach and another business model other than just weights, which could, as a physical therapist or massage therapist or both, or so that's the concept. It wouldn't be weight equipment in the storefront. I wouldn't see that happening.
I'm just harking back to the original renovation of the Getty about 15 years ago, where they were planning to turn it into a laundromat, and all the back of the laundry machines was facing out the windows.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's a lovely thing to look at. So thank you.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't do that.
Cafe with physical therapy.
Do you know how to drive this, Isaac, or can you?
Well, to be honest, if you want, I can actually give you
That would be great.
the whole thing.
With the, I was gonna say, if it's a remote mouse, you could probably just give it a mouse, but.
Awesome. This is perfect.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I'm not even plugged into a charger, so I think we're good to go.
I'm not a gamer, so I hope you don't get seasick if I try to do this. Okay, we'll give it a go. I have to remind myself of what to do here. All right. Whoops. I'm going to zoom out. Bear with me. This gets a little too cumbersome. We'll call it a day. All right, so here we are hovering over Market Square.
Software is this?
It's run by Epic Games with a Twinmotion Revit plugin. And this is from the back of the courthouse. You can see the Langdon House in the distance. And the fire station to the lower right. We don't have a lot of trees in this model, so use your imagination on landscapes and plantings. And if I try to get back down to street level and do a walkthrough. Oops. This is the seasick part I was telling you about. Well, so I guess my navigation precision is going to be kind of limited. But if you want to see any particular views, I can spin around and look from different angles.
So the trees you have shown there, at least the big ones, are the existing ones, and they're gonna remain.
We are definitely trying to keep at least two at the street. This big one at the corner is close to the addition. We are going to try to do what we can. There is one that will come down right where my mouse is here. That's where this white side element is. There's a scrubby pine tree on the corner of the entrance into the Pear Ave lot, on that little knoll where the sign is. That's the pine tree will come down, but the hardwood deciduous trees next to it are planned to remain. And then there's a bunch of new trees that will be planted between the drive aisles and the parking islands. And then in the back, we have this neat little pocket garden that will be right back in here. And there will be a sculpture and some benches to sit on. It's primarily for the residents who live here, but it's open to the public. Anybody can go there. You can see the ramp on this back side, which goes down underneath into the underground parking, and then the sidewalk comes from the parking area along the building under a canopy. Here, this is the primary residential entrance for the existing building. Over here, this entrance in the front is for the bank or physical therapy, actually, this building.
So there'll only be a couple parking spaces remaining from this view? Outside? I understand there's underground.
Oh, we didn't get all the striping in this model, so
There's a lot of
there's,
Oh, okay.
yeah, there's parking on both sides. It's not showing up here, but we have parking all along the Pear Ave side as well. And we're also adding, is it 3 spaces to the Pear Ave lot by reconfiguring the traffic island in this way.
Yeah, there are 30 or 40 spaces outside.
Oh, okay.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
So that would be for the business, the gym.
That's the intent.
That's the existing drive-through between the buildings. You can see we're not allowed to touch that. It's a grandfathered use, so there it is. It stays. It will still function as a drive-through. 2 lanes of traffic. How do I get back?
What's the grandfathered use?
Drive-throughs are not allowed downtown. Drive-throughs of any sort. But this one's been
Oh, you
here.
want to keep it, so you're
This
using a
one's been here for
grandfather.
45, 50 years, so it's allowed to stay if it's not changed.
Just curious, what's the
Yeah.
purpose of that with the,
The bank?
oh, the existing
Yeah.
bank, got it, okay.
No, yeah, the
Well,
banks
the-
have used it over 50 years, but Kennybunk Savings Bank,
Will
this
use-
is going to be their headquarters for New Hampshire. wants the
So it'll use on the other side or on the same side on the old building?
They're on the new side of the
Okay.
building. They use tubes on the drive-through.
Got it,
For transactions.
I see.
Now, is this a difficult thing? Did you load this up knowing that you're nearing the finish line and, this is kind of like the final? Because this would have been useful like 3 months ago.
That was,
I mean, this speaks very well to how this is scaled compared to the rest of the neighborhood. And it's a great little argument for how this is going to fit in. So I'm just.
Once we
curious.
figured it out, it went really easy, which is why we did Gillies in 2 seconds. Getting the first thing set up, we
Yeah.
had to get a software subscription and format the models. But once we got it set up, then it goes really easy. So you do it once and then it's easy. I think it is a great tool. It's the intent of the 3D City model was to use it as not a finished rendering, but as a tool for design.
It's using Google Maps to get all the other buildings in there?
No, so Tangram 3DS is a rendering, local rendering business, and they created this 3D model of the city, and it's on the city website. You download it. It is a little tricky because you can't download it in Revit. It's only in SketchUp or AutoCAD, and Revit doesn't talk to. They fight. So you have to get a third-party software so they can talk to each other, and then the fourth-party there's a bunch of layers. But once you make the connections, it works pretty well. It works even better if you have some gaming experience and can navigate better than this.
But it is available there without any new designs.
design, yeah,
You
sure.
can just fly through town if you want to.
Yep.
And you,
Does a good
so-
job of showing relative massing and
Yeah, yeah.
heights and stuff like that. That's what I think
and
is
you're
really
using
great
AutoCAD
about it.
or a different product?
Revit.
Revit, oh, it's a product, okay, got it.
Tracy, could you try one more time to get a street level view from State Street headed down towards the new buildings?
You had it before, you just were only a tad high.
All right. They say to go faster. I press the shift key. You can actually see this from Market Square. Oops.
Would be nice if it had a little button that said, place me at
There
5
probably is a
foot,
way
5
to do
foot
that.
7.
Right here.
Need a little joystick.
You are.
There we go.
Simulate pedestrian experience would be a
Alright.
great button to be
Yeah.
able to push.
All right, so we are gonna rotate our view. Whoa. Yeah, right. Oh, man. Ah. Help. Okay. Oh, my gosh. Here we, almost there. There, okay.
Okay,
Now.
forward.
window.
Now walk.
Oh, falling on the ice.
While we're navigating, are there any
Yeah.
other questions or comments or?
Kate, yes.
I would speak to the architect.
Yes. All right, I'll stop playing with this for a minute.
Walk me through the tile, the glazed brick. I can see them and I know what they are. I guess I'm trying to. Why?
We're trying to, the new buildings, we're trying to find something that would tie in a little bit more to the new building next to it than the traditional red brick you see all downtown. This is, all right, well.
Oh.
Find out. We like the warm color and the tone and the softness of it, and mostly the fact that we're not trying to build an 1810 red brick building, but we like the scale of the brick. There's a lot of painted brick on Pleasant Street and State Street, and we thought, well, could we just paint it? Well, why not? That peels, it doesn't work, so we thought if we got the glazed, it would kind of bring together the modern building, the painted brick buildings, and the brick buildings with a color that we think blends in.
didn't hear anything that makes me think that this is a good idea. When we talk about 18th century or 19th century brick buildings, you actually have some 20th century brick buildings, a stone's throw from here down whatever. We have a lot of brick in town, everywhere. And I'm not saying it's the signature of the community, but it's a very comfortable and repeated material. There is still a fair amount of, in my mind, variations allowed. Nothing that we have, very little that we have, not nothing, but very little. The Oddfellows Hall maybe, because it's pressed brick. We know that very well.
Where is it?
40 Congress Street, Frank Jones, Oddfellows.
Just describing a kind of if you will, a perfect brick facade. The joints are tiny, and the brick are absolutely flat, uniform, and they stacked on top of each other with
Almost looking
precision.
glazed, yeah. All-
It has the same kind of feel, but it still is brick, and it still blends in quite well with the mid-century brick around it. We don't have very much of this, I would say at all, but we had lost the comfort station. We used to have a glazed brick comfort station, and on that lot with that bank. Not much else. I don't know that I'm not prepared to move to a departure from brick. I think that the statement, it's funny that this is the place that I'm digging my heels in, because everything else is really working out. You've done the good job. I'm not trying to be a problem. You've done the good job. It isn't high art. It's a thing that fits in. And it's using the thing that's there, which is that's a big check mark, and then fitting in with the new stuff. But this, I think, is a departure, and there's a lot of it. Next part, same buildings. What's with the headers on the windows? Once again, we've got a lot of brick buildings with a lot of headers in them, and we only have one that looks like this. And I wonder what's the point?
The steel.
The steel.
The steel
I got it, it's steel.
Yeah. That's in one of the earliest work sessions, there were some references to try to tie this into the industrial language, to try to bring it more in connection with the existing building. So we started going with this scheme of bringing in a steel language in some of the detailing, to tie it into some of the steel and exposed metals that we have on the other building. That's all it's there to, it's because of the building behind it that we're trying to bring some steel detail in.
It just, it fails for me. Thank you for your considerations.
Tracy, if I could interrupt, if we're all set with that model, if you don't mind, if I can grab the computer just so I can get back to the slide in case there's anyone that wants to point out to a different slide.
You know, if there's a feeling on the brick, I'm happy to do samples, make approval conditional upon doing a sample of that and a sample of red brick, and letting you revisit that material after seeing a buttered up one, you know, on site, something larger of that scale to, I'm happy to do that if I am comfortable with that. I hear what Dave's saying, but this area just departs so much down Pleasant Street, with Wood being across the street on the governor's house, Wood being next to us, behind us being all of the courthouse. We're not the Market Square red brick area. So there is some down Pleasant further.
But this is a massive building right here made out of red brick. I mean, everything around is, I mean, it.
I'm not disagreeing.
I'm just saying that there's enough of it that I don't think anyone ever is going to point their finger and say, you know, it's funny that they don't have the imagination to use something other than red brick. Just saying.
Yeah, I can see it go either way. I do feel this area departs.
There are a lot of bricks downtown, so I'm sure we could look at some other choices.
It was one of the only thing that stood out to me that was a little controversial. I'll use that word. Maybe if we had examples of it in larger scale use in other locations, it does throw off it does have a different vibe than a New England brick, environment. And some of these renderings look more like a buff brick than a apricot.
Right.
So I'd be open to a mock-up that would, and I don't mind the steel lintels. This is a new building, so there's some liberties I would allow. But yeah, that was probably the only thing that was like, wow, apricot, huh?
I wouldn't have a problem if the commission decided after seeing a mock-up, if, like I said, if we did an approval based on you're not approving the apricot, you're deferring that to looking at the two models, brick versus apricot, and then I wouldn't be uncomfortable if the commission decided red brick. I find that very interesting, but I also get where it could be a little challenging to some.
And yeah, you probably want to see it too, just to be convinced.
Absolutely.
I guess the old high school is a departure from the red brick. And is that glazed?
No.
No, it's brick.
Oh, that's yellow brick, 1905.
Okay.
Actually,
Limestone.
I love the old high school color. I think it's wonderful, and it's interesting to me that a lot of the forms, the hip roof and some of the swooping windows, is very, very reminiscent of the high school. It's just too bad that they're so far apart that only people who pay attention to these things would put the two together if you chose a more buttery color. I see an advantage to having a lighter brick on this building. But
While we were
I
talk-
would,
oh,
I would
sorry, go
support mock-ups completely.
Dave,
Well-
is the color or the glazing or both?
It's probably more than anything, it's the uniformity of the color. And the finality of it. And maybe that's not a thing, but it's what I think it is.
I do think that a mock-up would help, because I think that seeing this color with sort of wide white spacing makes it look really pink. And I think that probably there's so many different variations of the mortar color that would make this color look different.
Carry this one step further, mock-up of that wall. I think the same thing with the stone, and with its jointing. I think a mock-up of all those masonry materials, which are not squeezed out of a can like your paint. That you can project what the paint's going to look like. You can't be certain until you get on site and put the pieces together, mortar and material.
I think that's very appropriate. I think we even do that, as you know, with our red brick, our normal brick, just to make sure that the mortar joint and the mock-up. So I think if we did that, both of those with a condition that you want to see a mock-up and revisit that on what the mock-ups look like, I'm very comfortable with that.
Excellent.
Very comfortable.
While we've been talking, I Googled glazed brick historic buildings, some of which appear to be in the UK just by the type of architecture. But what I was noticing with the various colors is the reflectivity. Some of them is just like they reflect a lot, or maybe it's just the way the person took the photo. So what I was going to say is, gosh, it's more work, but you could do a mock-up with that, with the marble, like he had said, and then you could do a mock-up with red brick with the marble. But then how about something in the middle? Because that is a nice color. You could do a mock-up with that color in a traditional,
Clay.
clay brick
Yep.
color. Then that way you've got three mock-ups. You can see traditional brick, one end. You can see that with the reflectivity at the other end. And then you can preserve that color with more flat sheen with what's in the middle. So that's three mock-ups. I know that's a pain, but gives you the whole spectrum of what we're talking about. But when I Googled this, I was like this one here, I know we're not talking bright red, but if you look at the sheen on some of these, it's just like, and no computer can model what the afternoon sun is going to reflect off of that. So,
And I'll just say, in my opinion, I don't have a problem with a glazed brick, though we don't have that many examples around here. But again, this is a new building, and you're using traditional forms. So I think it's entirely appropriate to have modern materials on a traditional form to really show that to showcase that it is a new building, but it is working to be contextual. So, yes. So it sounds like we have a lot of discussions still to try and kind of fine tune the materials and colors here. But are there any other questions or concerns with the design aside from these colors and materials?
I would just say, I think the materials are fantastic. I mean, real slate, that's wonderful. Other than the brick discussion, I think you've arrived. The form, the massing, it's all right.
and once again, I'm going to second what Martin said. But yeah, I think you nailed it on that.
And when I first saw the change of the main entrance to the bank to being the three sort of arches arcade, it brought to my mind the Brick Market, which
The original.
the original Brick Market, which had that arcade, even though this is a little farther away, but it at least has some sort of historic context, I guess, even though it's a very modern interpretation of it. All right. Well, if there's no other main discussion or questions, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to the public because we've had some very patient public waiting here for us. So,
And this is still work session, right?
yes. So it's still the work session.
You're right about
Good evening, Elizabeth Brader, property owner, 159 McDonough Street. I'm glad it's still the work session. Isaac, could you please bring up the picture of the building on the front of Pleasant Street that shows you the house next door?
Let's see.
It's in the pictures, so.
Was it that one?
No,
That property next door?
no, you can see the white building and then the gray building next to it.
It might be in some of the renderings.
H302.
No, it's down here, it's coming up. Slow down.
Was it this one?
No, a little further.
Stop, back up. There.
All right, now one of them shows the building next door. Can you go down?
The third from the end.
Yeah.
Materials.
Yeah, so we've gone through all the photos. I don't.
You don't have a page.
Sure, real quick. Yeah, I'm sorry. Usually I'm better prepared.
Could you just grab can I see the brick? Yeah, thank you. Perfect.
You might have been remembering just views from the 3D model.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about.
220.
house is in shadow. Just see the edge of it right there.
Am I covered? Okay.
Is this,
Elizabeth, is it this one with the shadow, the
We
houses to
can
the?
use the shadow one, but no, actually, go to the one with the white, with just the building with the white. Let me tell you the number, now that we have the picture.
watch out
Sorry,
for the
sorry, yeah, the
microphone.
microphone.
Try
Shows you the daytime and the nighttime, the Langdon Street at night, the Junkins Ave view.
Can you say what the page number is?
It's down right there. 03.
Okay.
So, the white part of the building, to me, looks like the windows on the top remind me of the 1970s when everybody put their air conditioner in the wall. And then, or a gun thing on an old castle. I feel really strongly that those small windows take away from the rest of that building. That building is put together really beautifully. They have all the little extras on the top, the round on the bottom. My language is off for architect, sorry. But those windows, to me, really take away from the building. I'm not really sure why they're there. They're way up higher than the rest. Maybe that's where the living room is and you're trying to make it so you can put more furniture in there. But personally, I think those windows should be bigger, or they should have something that it's like a big blank wall. You want to put a poster across the front of it. And that might make a difference, maybe a stripe or something. I don't know. I just feel like those ends, the bottom is gorgeous, like on this one on the bottom left, but the windows on the top just look totally out of character for that, as well as for the house next door, which has the regular double hung windows right next door. So that's my comment on that. I'm curious, you have the samples, but they look like cinder blocks for the white cedar blocks, the white granite. Are those going to be cinder block shaped? Because that's what it looks like in the rendering. So I was just curious about that. You don't have to answer it. I know we can't converse back and forth, but that's what they look like. So I'm curious if they're cinder blocks, because 51 Islington Street drives me crazy to this day because they're brown cinder blocks, and it really takes away from everything near it. So I just want to be sure those aren't cinder blocks and they're just actually some kind of long, or what their actual shape is. Can you go to the penthouse, please, Isaac?
Yes. And find a
The
good.
top, that view there is perfect.
Okay.
Okay. So my understanding is there are going to be two penthouses. When the building on the corner of State Street and Pleasant Street wanted to put a penthouse up there were all kinds of issues with it. And my issue with this is it's actually a third story. So the penthouse definition says it has to set back 20 feet from a public place, which is the front of the building, and it has to sit back 15 feet on all other sides. So the height for this area is a maximum of 35 feet, which they have on the lower part. It's 2 stories with the short third, but that does not look like a penthouse, or even 2 of them. It looks like a third story. So I don't know if they have to get a variance or if they got one already and I missed that, but it does not fit any of the criteria for setbacks for that. It does fit the height. The height is allowed to be 10 feet, and it does fit the height, but everything else it doesn't fit, and I have concerns about how that could pass, and if it did. So that's it for me. I think that generally it looks very nice. The windows on the left that are going to be facing the courthouse look very plain as well, but I think that the presented stone is going, my understanding is it's going to be a flat stone as opposed to a textured stone. And I have concern, I think the textured stone would give it a little character on that side. And the other thing is in regards to the brick, I would like to see what that brick looks like next to red brick. So if you brought those mocks that you talked about, you could actually see that. But as Dave brought up, everything else around there is red brick, including the very large building next to it. So if these structures are sitting next to red brick, and it's a massive building like the courthouse building is, what is that going to look like in terms of colors, in terms of texture, in terms of the feel of that? So other than that, I like the new changes to it. I think it's a real improvement over what was there. And as I stated, the penthouse does not meet the criteria, as far as I can tell, on the front or on the rear. And the white parts seem like they're just very stark. And if you look at the building next door, it's a gray with the double hungs, and it has clapboards across it on the Pleasant Street side. And that white, to me, looks not at all historical, or even like it's blending in with this historical building next door. That's it. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Anyone online?
Nope.
Well, you're welcome to respond to any of that, although the penthouse definition is not really under our purview.
Right,
so
and
it's not-
it does meet penthouse, and
Okay.
we have to design it to that, and that's being looked at in planning and technical advisory committee and planning board. So
That's fine. But it's not anything we have all over here.
Too much math for this board.
Any numbers? Mhm.
That's a whole different set of drawings.
yeah.
If I can throw something out here when we're talking about the comparison of three possible different bricks. There's a building in Sydney, Hay Street Market. It's not quite apricot, but it's clay brick. It's like a shade off from that, but it's definitely not red brick. But, see what I'm saying? So you're very close to that in terms of
Yeah,
shade. It's
I'm
just a
sure,
clay brick, not a
I thought it was an
glazed brick.
interesting idea to find, the red brick, the glazed brick, and then the clay brick that has a color like this that's not glazed. I think
Yeah, see,
we could do that.
I'm more than willing to fund those samples on site.
Find
You
it.
know, we can just isolate that as, as a condition to the approval. Then we can take our pick and, as you know, they'll all be 500-pound samples, so we'll need to make them and put them on site. And, but I think it's worth the effort. I think that Dave started a reasonable item, that it might not be the best selection of this on the apricot. And it might not be red brick. It might be in the middle of an actual brick that is of a
That's why I
different.
wanted to show you the actual
Yeah.
building. I just couldn't remember the name of it, but yeah.
Well, so we're still in work session mode here. If you want to move ahead, we've had a lot of discussions and changes, but we can close out the work session and move to a public hearing,
Would
if you
prefer
prefer.
that, yeah.
And then, however you present the public hearing with some of the discussions that we've had, we can go forward. So,
Reagan, before you close that out, Tracy, did you have any feedback with regard to the square windows that Elizabeth brought up?
I got a comment on it. I think that when you have a lot going on architecturally, and you pick an item, and you focus on an item, like the square windows up there, it's much different than they blend in when you look at the whole picture and the whole reality. And I think that in the entire scape of the building, they fit in well. When you focus on just those, you can say, oh, yeah, that's a point. But they are large windows. They're not small on the way they are. And that front part is two-story space. So I think some of the square windows at the top they can't be a lot larger into the second, the street level space is two-story space. And so that impacts a little bit what you're doing up at the top. I think they work with everything going on here. I shared the same comment with Tracy before, and I've grown to kind of feel that they work when you're not looking at just them. You're looking at the whole thing.
Thank you.
If there's no other discussion, let's
So
get
moved.
Thank you. Close out the work session. Second, anybody?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. All right, let's move up and finish this out with a public hearing.
There you go. Take it. Down.
All right. So, just introduce the project one more time, please, just for procedural sake. And this, how you present it this time is what we will vote on.
Good evening. Thank you for having us for our public hearing. Tracy Kozak, Arcove Architects, here on behalf of the applicant. And we have just finished a work session, and we would like to present our project for your consideration as presented. I'm happy to go through any particular images or drawings or aspects. If there are any additional questions, I could answer them. Just one change from what's presented, we would like to offer to present brick mock-up samples before having an approved selection of a brick color. We would come back with some options of clay bricks and different colors of clay, and then the glazed brick alongside it for the commission to review and direct us on. We'll also a mock-up of the white granite put up in a panel.
Great. Do you want to just quickly take us through?
Yes, so renovation to the existing Citizens Bank building that's there. We are recladding it. We are adding some fenestration and a rooftop penthouse. The building will be used for gym and physical therapy on the bottom, and there are a total of 14 apartments on the 2 stories above that, or the second floor and the penthouse have a total of 16 apartments. The existing drive-through remains, and then there's a new building along Pleasant Street, which is made of a combination of hipped roof forms and some flat roof connector sections. We have updated the entrance architecture on the new building, slightly revised some roof pitches, and provided additional details. Those are the views in context. And the elevations. And the rear elevations. That drawing there those are the drive-through elevations. So when you're driving in between the buildings and you look left or right, that's what you see on the in-between. We didn't talk about that much, but that's what that is. And then these are the renderings. That's from Pleasant Street coming from the north. And that is Pleasant Street day and night. And on the bottom is Pleasant Street coming from City Hall in that direction, Junkins Ave, day and night. That's from Parrot Ave parking lot. And some close-ups of the entrance. That's the existing building renovated, reclad roof decks, and the new fenestration.
Tracy, could you stop for a second?
Yep.
Tracy, could I just ask about the canopy of the drive-through? Is that being reclad similarly with the rest of the building?
Yes, so as it goes across horizontally, it's almost 2 feet tall. That would have the same metal composite panels, that gray color, as the second floor.
And the supporting posts?
Trying to remember right now, those are brick. Are they brick? That is a great question. I'd have to look at the drawing. Do we have to leave them brick? I guess we do. They're brick right now. I think we're showing them clad in metal, but
Would you like to bring that as a follow-up detail?
yeah, I think we can do that. Yep.
Can I also ask about the material on the roof here, on this hip roof? It looks red, but I didn't see that.
That's the copper. It's
Oh, it's the copper,
yep,
okay.
Copper. So that is a natural copper, so it will age in patina. It will turn dark brown first, and then maybe in 10 or 20 years, it will slowly change to the green over time.
Keep going.
Do you want to just mention the specs for the windows?
Yes. Let's see.
It just looks like most of them are fixed, but some in the new building are operable.
We actually have a lot of double hungs in the new building, and the upper windows, little square ones, are awnings on the new building. In the existing reno, the upper second floor windows are all awnings, and most of the first floor windows are fixed for the commercial space.
Okay.
And we have a finish schedule on sheet 8410. The windows are Pella. The operable windows are Pella. The storefronts at the commercial entrances are Conair aluminum.
I'm just trying to think of anything else that we might have missed in discussion, but I think that I think we've covered it. All right, any more questions? Should go pretty quickly. All right. Let's open it up to the public then, unless you have anything else. And then we can, in the motion, we can talk about any stipulations. All right, please. Yes, public, please. Anyone from the public?
Public. I'm sorry to be the public. Elizabeth Bratter, property owner, 159 McDonough Street. Although I understand what was said about the windows in that building, I just feel strongly that that white section is what you're going to see as you're coming down Pleasant Street next to the gray building, which is going to really shout white. And I do feel strongly that those windows are not, they are going to draw your eyes to them even though the other building is there because it's white. And that I have a big issue with that when you compare it to the building next door. It's supposed to blend in, not be screaming, look at me. So that's my issue with that. And I think you should wait until you see the mock-ups and the various different things that are going to be presented in regards to the drive-through area and all of that before you approve this. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wishing to speak to, for, or against this project? Anyone online? Okay. Well, then I will close the public hearing and wait for a motion.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to move that we approve this application with a couple of stipulations. Probably the most significant of which is the masonry, exterior cladding materials. All are going to require further conversation and in-place on-site samples showing jointing and technique of laying, along with some alterations to the choice of material itself. And I hope for second.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded, and I would say that this particular application to answer your question, ma'am, is that I see, and I think the commission has along seen the white pieces of that Pleasant Street side of the building as being dependencies. And inasmuch as they're dependencies, having unique forms in them does not seem like it's a distraction to the body of the building itself. This is a unique situation where we are filling a site on a historic street with a historic streetscape, and at the same time remodeling a not quite historic, but a previously constructed building which has a significance. God help we make a mistake on this one, but has a significance, and I think that this is a step of showing the vitality of that. I believe that this preserves the integrity of the district and maintains that certain special character that we see in the district, most significantly in the modulation of the sizes and scales of the buildings. This wasn't designed to be a standalone piece of art. This was something that would comfortably fit in, not replicate or point to a particular thing, but to comfortably fit into the rhythm of the streetscape, which ends right here. And so it's a kind of a unique building as it turns that corner. I think that it will promote the welfare of the city. I think it's consistent with the special and defining nature of the community, and I have no difficulty whatsoever supporting this.
Anyone else, any further discussion?
I will just add that, you know, the scale and the mass, the forms, the language being used is all very much appropriate for the historic district, and I think you know, it's come a long way through several months of work sessions, and I think it's reached a point where it's successful, and I'm going to fully support it. It's approved.
Anybody else?
I'm just going to probably repeat what I said the first time. I think in this presentation, it really has come a long way. It's softened up the existing building, which was much more modern, and it makes it totally blend in with the new building, which has more of an historic look. And by doing the, modulating the roofs from like high, low, high, and then low, high, low, and then preserving that hip roof on the existing building, or rather, not preserving, adding that hip roof to the existing building, I think it just softens up the whole flow as you go down the street. And I'm just saying what these two guys said in another way. So I totally agree with them.
Any other discussion? I'll just throw out there that, yes, we started out, we all recognized that this was a unique site with a very different, unusual problem than we usually see and face in the historic district. And yes, the existing building is a historic building. I think that if it hadn't been totally redone in the 80s, we would have an actual historic building to work with. But as it is now, you know, I think that the redesign of that building and the design of the proposed new building is very pleasing and aesthetically, this is all opinion, but I think that it will work very well, and in this very kind of strange location. So I thank you for all the work that you've done, and coming back to us several times. You know, this has been a long process. So I look forward to seeing some of these mock-ups and kind of fine-tuning some of the materials, but overall I think the design is very appropriate, so thank you. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, so thank you. All right, before we have our adjournment, I did want to mention that, kind of just update you all on the boundary redefinition of Middle Street. With further conversation with the planning board and from some members of the public who have made, who have commented on the process, I think, and I hope that you all will support the idea that,
Tracy.
oh, yeah, we just have
Tracy, there's one more piece of granite over here. Sorry.
The idea that we should maybe postpone this decision for the moment and wrap this up into a larger discussion that we intend to have with the master plan, when we can actually take some time to really make sure that if we're redefining this boundary, we're doing it purposefully with the real, if, and make sure that there's plenty of public comment so that those property owners who are being affected by this change have plenty of time and opportunity to come and be a part of that discussion. So,
Are we talking publicly attended site walk?
it could be that. I think that once we really, in this year, now that we're in 2026 and we start moving in towards master planning discussion, I've spoken with Rick Chelman to make sure that part of the master plan discussion will have a component where we are all very involved with talking about our historic resources, the historic district, as just a larger discussion and function of the master plan and how we want to look at everything holistically. So yes, I think that we can say what we could probably chart out a better course of this process so that it has a site walk. We have proper, communication with property owners and make sure that we are doing everything the right way rather than just kind of very quickly putting together a new boundary. So I think that there's nothing we really need to do.
No.
But we'll just table that we'll table it for now, and then once we really start working on the master plan, we'll probably, as a commission, have potentially a separate work session or discussion, or certainly an agenda item where we can really discuss how we want to move forward.
Isaac, I ask one question. The city's newsletter is putting out the opportunity for people to sign up to receive notices about certain committees or councils that are meeting, and the historic district is one of them.
Yes, it is. So if you sign up for that service, every time we post meeting materials to the website, or not every individual, but once we get all of the meeting materials uploaded, we send out a message to let folks know that they can go ahead and check out our website.
Okay. So I just wanted to point out, if there's anybody still listening, that this is a particular way that if you have been notified as an abutter that there's a project that affects you, and you only get notified that first time, and then sometimes people lose track of when it's coming, and then suddenly it's been approved and they feel like they haven't had a chance to interact. Sure. So if you've been notified as an abutter that there's a project going on, if you use this feature and you sign up, you will continue to receive notices that might affect the project in your area. And then once you're done, if you want, you can unassign yourself to that list. But it's a really good way to make sure that you don't lose track of a project that you might have been interested in.
And I will just add that folks can sign up for all boards that are represented, individual ones, a few here and a few there. So you're not all tied to one or the other. So it's a great new system.
Was there a update on the grant writing?
Unfortunately, we've not heard back from Brandy. We were hoping for an update late December, so we'll reach out and see what's up with that.
No, I don't think that they have awarded the grants yet, so we're still just waiting.
Yep.
But everything went in through? And
Everything went in. They accepted it. We got in on time, so that part is done.
I will certainly keep you all updated as soon as we hear. Okay, any other discussion questions? Anything? Okay.
So moved?